My name is Dr. Erica Liggins, licensed clinical psychologist and EPPP coach. I want to thank you so much for tuning into this recording. Your role as their significant other or spouse is one of the most important roles and can really make a difference in this process. In this session, I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about what the EPPP is all about, as well as things to avoid while you're trying to help the test taker through this process. And lastly, I'm going to end with giving you some key ways that you can be an amazing support to your loved one as they finish this last leg of the journey. The EPPP is a licensing exam that is required for all psychologists in order to be able to practice freely in whatever state or territory they live in. This test consists of 2 parts, and each part has about 200 multiple choice questions. It takes about 8 hours to complete both part 1 and 2 if the test taker does not have time accommodations. If they do have accommodations, they will be given a bit more time to complete the exam. One of the things that makes this test so challenging is that it features a lot of content that they've never seen before, and the questions tend to be written in really strange ways. As a result, most test takers report that they literally feel like they're failing the entire time, or at best, they don't know how they're doing. So I want you to imagine for a moment what that would feel like to be in a testing environment for about 8 hours and to literally feel like you're failing or having no idea how you're doing. It is extremely stressful to take this exam, and the preparation for it is just as overwhelming. The test covers approximately 11 different content areas, so basically it feels like the test taker is taking 11 classes at the same time. And because it's so much information, it takes on average about 3 to 6 months to prepare for it, and they have to study an average of about 15 to 20 hours per week. So studying for this exam really feels like you're taking on a really boring, overwhelming, tedious, and stressful part-time job. And to make matters worse, test takers are already so exhausted from spending so many years in school trying to get their degree. And to just add a little more insult to injury, everything about this exam is extremely expensive. There are a lot of fees that are involved with it, from the actual exam itself, both parts of it, to the testing materials, as well as other fees that they have to pay to the state in order to be able to get their license. And to make matters even more complicated, when you are unlicensed, the access you have to good paying jobs is extremely limited. So most test takers are working with limited financial resources while having to balance this expensive test and all of the costs involved with it. So I hope this gives you an idea of what they're up against and how hard this exam really is. Now that you're aware of what the EPPP is all about, I want to make sure that you're aware of things to avoid doing while trying to provide support during this journey. First of all, minimizing how hard the test is by saying things like, "Oh, you're stressing too much. It's just another test," or "You're smart, you'll figure it out," really isn't helpful. Although we mean for it to be helpful, oftentimes test takers are left feeling really invalidated and unsupported. Also, if you say things like, "What's wrong? Why can't you get it together? Why haven't you passed this thing yet?" Although we might be trying to speak from a place of concern, a lot of times things like that comes across as like we're trying to criticize them, which just leaves them feeling even more defeated. Next, if you have a license in this field or another field, sometimes we might try to compare our experiences by sharing, "Oh, it was easy for me to pass, you'll be fine," or "Well, I did it, why can't you?" When we compare our experiences, again, that makes people feel more pressured, and it makes them feel bad if they've had trouble and you haven't. So that's something we definitely want to avoid. Also, asking them for their exact test date or sharing that date with others if they have shared the date with you is another thing that we want to make sure that we don't do. I strongly encourage my coaching clients to tell as few people as possible what the actual test date is, because many people find that receiving a lot of phone calls and messages around their test date, even if they're messages of good luck, still can make them feel really, really, really pressured. And if they unfortunately fail, many people have told me that they were felt like really embarrassed or ashamed to have to go back and tell all these people that they have failed their exam. And this is because they really care about what you think of them. And I encourage you not to underestimate how much your opinion of them really matters. I have heard from countless test takers that what hurt them the most about failing wasn't even necessarily that they failed, but for many, feeling that they had let their loved ones down was one of the hardest things. So please don't underestimate how much your opinion matters. And lastly, I want to make sure that you don't assume that you know how to best motivate them. Everyone gets motivated in different ways. For example, you might like a little tough love or someone really staying on top of you and holding you accountable. But your loved one might actually find that to be rather not supportive or make them feel even more pressured or overwhelmed. So now that you have a better understanding of what not to do, I want to share with you how you actually can be most helpful. However, if you're listening to this and you've thought to yourself, oh no, I think I've made some mistakes and maybe I've said things that could have come across in an unhelpful way, please don't worry. Like the old saying goes, when we know better, we do better. And all you have to do is go to the test taker and let them know, hey, I didn't realize that maybe some of the ways I was trying to be helpful before may not have been helpful, but I have a better understanding now, and I really want to support you in the best ways that I can moving forward. So now it's time for us to talk about how you can be helpful during this process. One of the first things that you can do, besides being really understanding of how stressful this is also being aware of your mindset and energy around all of this. The more positive you are, the better. I hear from a lot of coaching clients that they can really feel their partner's negativity and frustration with the process, which just makes them feel even more pressured and anxious about the whole thing. I do want to say, however, though, that I can understand why you may have frustrations, especially if your loved one has taken this test multiple times. Given that you are the closest relationship in their life, this does impact you the most out of anyone. And so it is understandable that you could be, feeling some things about this, but I just encourage you to seek support, and when you need to vent, to maybe try to do that with other people other than the test taker. The next thing I would recommend is helping them set up their study space. This is one of the things that can really set the tone for a good study session. We want to make sure they're not studying like in the bed or on the couch or any other place in the home that is meant for relaxation. So you can really team up with them and encourage them to maybe reorganize the space a little bit to find a little cozy corner where they can study somewhere, or help them think through ideas of where they can study both either inside their home or outside of the home. But that's a way that you can really team up and add some really much needed support. Another thing that is really helpful is for you to be in the know about the study schedule and making sure that you respect their time when they're studying. So often my coaching clients find themselves getting interrupted by their loved ones, particularly their spouses and significant others, and children, of course, too, if they have those. So the more in the know you are about when they're going to study, we can just basically eliminate that problem before it starts. But sometimes they might forget to come to you and and really make sure that you know their schedule. So if they haven't come to you, make sure you go to them to inquire about their schedule. Another thing that's really helpful is giving lots of encouragement verbally, or some people really like a hug, or even written notes of encouragement. If you're people of faith, you can even tell them that you're praying for them. Of course, everybody responds to different types of encouragement differently, so you'll want to make sure that you find out what would be most helpful for them before you start to do that. The next biggest thing that you can do is helping them to reduce their responsibilities. So these are things like with house cleaning, other household duties, cooking. If you live separately, I have gift cards on the website. If you just hit the Give tab under Step 2, you'll find a ton of gift cards that you could give that could help them with meal prepping and meal delivery, or even getting them a general gift card that they could use for house cleaning services or what have you. And if you happen to live together, then you can actually take on some of that. So of course this means a little bit more work for you. And over the course of a few months, it can start to feel a little bit heavy, but it's so much more worth it to help them up front to reduce their stress so that they stay more focused on studying than to have them be really overwhelmed trying to do everything, and then they're not really focusing and doing what they're supposed to be doing, and therefore setting themselves up to fail. So another thing is, if you have children, please, please, please keep the children away while they are studying. A lot of times I'm hearing from coaching clients that their little ones are coming into the room, bugging them, asking questions, and when they go to find their significant other, they're kind of like, hey, why are they coming in here bothering me? It's clear that the other parent isn't really watching the child and really keeping them occupied. And so it is just so helpful if you agree to watch the children while they're studying, that you really, really, really watch them. Now, another thing that's really helpful is helping them to brainstorm other people that could be helpful. So often, people in this field, they are givers. They love to help other people, but they don't do very well with asking for help. In fact, I even sometimes have to really push my coaching clients just to share this video and send their family members to this to listen to these recordings, because they're just so used to doing everything on their own. So they might only send these recordings to a couple people and not really maximize all the people that they could be bringing to this page to learn more about how they can help. And so that's where you can come in. You can kind of challenge them a little bit to think about other people who could lend support, whether that's with childcare, or sending over a cooked meal, or sending a gift card for meal delivery, or helping out with house chores, whatever it is. Help them think through that. Also, another way to help is to start a GoFundMe. These testing costs are extremely expensive. That's another way that we can drum up support to get some help with all of this and alleviate some of the financial burden if you're having difficulty managing it. So these are, some of the things that can help reduce their stress. Now, of course, when they are very busy working, trying to keep up with the home and everything, sometimes spending time together can become a real difficult thing to manage, especially again if you have children and other responsibilities. So it's really important during this process that you sit down together and carve out a little bit of time that you're going to spend together each week during this process. Of course, it's not going to be as much as you're used to, but if you can agree upon, 1 or 2 times a week to have a little bit of time to get together where you're really focused on each other, that can help make sure that you stay bonded and connected during this journey. That way you don't become kind of like passing ships in the night. I find that a lot of test takers, because of their anxiety and or maybe perfectionism, they struggle to find balance and will kind of throw themselves into studying so much so that they kind of forget to have relationships and take care of themselves. And so that's where you can come in to kind of sit down and map that out before they even start. So when it comes to all these tips I've given, make sure that before you do anything, that you sit down and really just ask what can be most helpful. Other than, buying the gift cards, that's really easy. Most people love to get a good gift card, but outside of that, if you're going to do a GoFundMe or pull in other people or try to help them set up things, you really want to sit down and have a quick meeting with them and just make sure that you're on the same page and that you know how to best help them. I would like to take a moment to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this recording. Your support during this process is absolutely pivotal, and it is much appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you.